At Rubber Band, we empower each other through positivity, kindness, and practical advice. Join a community of thousands of peers who understand the unique challenges you face. Rubber Band. Company agnostic, low ego, high empathy, always supportive.
Isn't it funny that as recruiters we talk about delivering a better candidate experience and more efficient recruitment processes, but yet we use tools and systems like ATSs to manage applicants when they come through, but give us no capability to engage and get updates from candidates throughout the recruitment process. That's still done by phone and email. And this is the exact problem that Job Tetris is solving. We've created the world's first job and candidate tracking solution to enable you to deliver a better process, more efficient and more transparent, and build on that relationship with candidates. We've partnered with Rubber Band to give you guys an exclusive look into the functions and features of the system during our first ever webinar. We look forward to seeing you there. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.
High volume hiring is a massive headache. With hundreds of applications, your recruiters spend most of their time on repetitive admin tasks like follow-ups with candidates to collect missing information, interview scheduling, and answering the same questions over and over again. Plus, cutting through to candidates via email and phone is getting harder and harder. As a result, your hiring slows down, you lose out on the best candidates, and your business can't operate at full capacity. That's why employers use Mercu's AI-powered recruitment automation platform to automate their high-volume hiring. Effortlessly screen candidates, collect missing information, schedule interviews, and even run AI-powered behavioral questions via chat or video. Streamline your interview scheduling, get contracts signed, and start onboarding successful candidates immediately. And best of all, Mercu integrates with your existing applicant tracking system. No applicant tracking system? No problem. Mercu also works standalone. Mercu, the AI-powered recruitment automation platform for your high-volume hiring needs.
Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Rubber Band podcast, which is Recruitment Chinwag with Suzann Cooper. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I live and work on, the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging, and I would like to extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome, podcast virgin, I believe, Suzann Cooper. Hello.
Indeed. Thank you, Eden, for the warm welcome, and I'm very, very excited to be having this chinwag with you.
I'm so excited to have this chinwag with you, Suzann, and it was so lovely to bump into you at the ATC and see you face to face finally. I've known you through the Rubber Band community for quite some time.
Yeah.
And follow the work that you do at Baxter, and you're awesome. So this is going to be fun. Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's great to see you as well, and great to participate in ATC. Also my first time, so
I love it. First time in Melbourne, and you're a Sydney-sider, and you came down to Melbourne. Wow, that's cool.
Absolutely.
Good on you.
Yeah, thank you. It was great fun and learnt so much.
Excellent. Yeah, it was a really great event. I wish I could have stayed for all of it, but no, it's also really great content. It was really wonderful. But we're here to talk about you. Let's talk about you, Suzann. And
alrighty.
You know, you're a listener of Chinwags. You know, we're gonna go back. When it's with me, when you're talking about me, it's way back, but it's probably not quite so far back for you because you're much more of a spring chicken than I am. So, but tell me about your childhood. Tell me about Suzann Cooper. Tell me about growing up, family, all of those things.
Okay. Firstly, I think that you're probably the spring chicken. I just have an amazing beautician.
Yeah,
for sure. So childhood, yeah, look, interesting one. My mum had me at quite a young age, and then her and my stepdad both migrated to Australia, on big steamboats from Europe. So I'm actually first generation Australian. And so, yeah, we kind of lived pretty tough, like when I was a kid, in terms of where we lived. Both my parents were young. They worked in kind of like retail type roles and things like that to start with. But look, I remember it as my childhood. I really enjoyed it. I mean, how could you not back then, right? It was like riding your BMX around the streets, climbing trees. I was a real tomboy. So yeah, it was great childhood. Went into, I guess, primary school, high school. Went to a selective high school. Didn't really love it, but I did make some fantastic friends there, which we're still friends today, which is really nice. And I guess, as I mentioned, both my parents migrated, so I had a bit of a struggle with them probably during my teen years.
Oh,
They
didn't
both
you?
came from countries that really, at the end of the day, I guess you would say were under dictatorship, right?
Right.
So we're talking Germany, Croatia, or Yugoslavia
Uh-huh.
back in the day.
Yeah.
And so my stepdad really did rule with an iron fist, and it was very much my way or the highway. So you couldn't really have an opinion. And I
Mm.
guess as a result, I pushed back on that. And so I found myself getting into trouble a lot. And I think I got kicked out at the age of 18. So I just finished my high school certificate. And yeah, pretty much was on my own from then on.
Wow. I was 19. I had a pretty similar journey. And I think it was just I was quite rebellious, right? I didn't
Yeah,
have overly,
same.
like my parents weren't overly strict. I was just really, rebellious. It was a bit
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
What part? Did you grow up in Sydney?
I did, yeah. Born and bred, Sydney.
Yeah. Whereabouts?
Gosh, I've moved throughout Sydney, but mostly like southwest, inner west, eastern suburbs area is where I've lived. I now live in a place called Walleye Creek,
I know
Gadigal
Willow Creek
Country.
fairly well. Yeah. I grew
Gadigal
up
Country.
southwest as well. I grew up
Oh,
in
okay.
Campbelltown. Yeah, I'm a
Yeah,
Campbelltown boy.
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Great.
So know it well.
So
And when you're talking about your school, I've just got this sneaking suspicion that we went to the same high school. Something's telling me that, and I don't know why. Did you go to Hurlston?
no, I went to St. George Girls.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
all
another one
girls
of the
school,
selective
terrible.
school. Oh, right. There's the rebellion, particularly with you talking about being a tomboy in an all girls school, right? Like,
Yeah, for
of
sure,
course
for
you're going to
sure.
rebel. Yeah. Well, did you? I mean, you left home at a young age. So did I. So we were
Yeah,
thrust straight into the workforce, right? Like, and
absolutely.
even though both of us went to selective school, so very intelligent human beings, but had
Mhm.
to go out into the world and, you know,
Find our
I
way.
suppose find our way, right? And
Yeah,
postpone things like tertiary education
yeah.
and all of that sort of stuff. So
Mhm.
when you left home young, like, tell me about entering the workforce, because you obviously had to pay the bills, and that's hard for an 18-year-old.
Yeah. I guess in some ways I was lucky because I did work while I was in high school as well.
Right.
So I already had your work experience, some work history there. I had worked at McDonald's, first
Yeah.
job, of course. McDonald's, absolutely loved it, loved it. Used to do the drive-through and give friends, free boxes of cookies and all that.
Oh, yeah.
Shh, we won't tell anyone. And then I worked at a supermarket. I also worked at a medical center. So I came with quite a fair bit of experience coming out of high school. So
Mm.
grateful for that. So as a result, I then started. I think my first job when I had moved out of home was in retail. Um, and then I was trying to make a decision on whether I would join the Navy
Oh,
or whether I actually had an opportunity to go for an interview for Optus. So this is when
right.
Optus was brand new to the market, right? So I thought, you know what, just go for the interview at Optus and then you can make a decision. If that doesn't go ahead, then Navy it is. Optus was a process. So they did a full on like assessment center. So it was an interview, it was working as part of a team, all of that kind of thing. Luckily, I got the job, so I didn't end up in the Navy. But in some ways, it would have probably been a great opportunity to see the world.
Yeah.
Um, and so from that point on, I guess working at Optus, we started using like a lot of software. So I did a mix of telemarketing, customer service, and again, I had a customer service background already. And it was pretty hard gig doing the telemarketing because, as you can imagine, Telstra's been around for so long, and all of a sudden there was a new player in the market. And, it was always, even though people were complaining about Telstra, Aussies, it's like better the devil you know sort of thing. So it was very hard trying to sell the services initially, but you become very resilient, to say the least. So that's kind of was probably when I started working in telco, started to use a lot of software and started to realize I was pretty good with IT. So I did spend a couple of years in telco, and then from there I actually moved into IT.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Doing what? Doing what in IT? This is we're not going where I thought we were going to go here. I thought it was going to be, and then at Optus I decided I wanted to be a recruitment consultant. So
No. Yeah, I had a whole nother career. I've actually changed careers a couple of times. So then I went into IT. It started because I just got a little bit sick and tired of telco. So I picked up some contracting gigs. And my first one was as a project coordinator for a software company. While there, the software manager was like, I kind of need some help here. You've mentioned you're pretty good with technology. Can you help me out with some software testing? I'm like, never done it before, but sure. So got involved in that. And then I ended up having a friend who had just started up a software test business or a like professional services organization. And his first contract was based in Hobart. So he kind of said to me, look, you've done a little bit of software testing, but more importantly, I need someone I can just trust and rely on. So I want to offer you a position. Do you want to come down to Hobart and work with me? And I said, yeah, sure. Not a problem. I was a big risk taker back then too. I think when you've just got yourself to take care of, you don't have kids or anything, or responsibilities, you kind of just do whatever. And it was great. It was a great opportunity. I was really lucky. He would basically give me books to read on software testing, and then quiz me the next day. I ended up managing a team of people who were experts in software testing, and I still to this day am just like, I don't know how I did it, but I did it. And I guess, look, I was just leading the team, so I was just keeping things on track, coordinating things, working with the stakeholders, and then so I think I was in software testing for about 14 years.
Wow.
And I did a mix
years.
of I did a mix of software testing, test management, training on testing technology, including like some insurance companies like Westpac. It was like a full career in software testing.
That's incredible. I'm learning so much about you already. This is great. Well, you know what I'm going to ask? How did recruitment come about? When did that happen? What point in your career and how?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, most of my career in software testing was contracting. So a good probably 12 plus years, right? I then had, I had children at this point, and I just wanted to slow down a little bit. And I had an opportunity to work at St. George Bank, which was close to home. Supposedly it would be 9 to 5. No, there never is. But Westpac then acquired St. George Bank. I was like one of the last people to join the team. So obviously one of the first people whose role was made redundant. So it was the first time I really had some time to be a mom, hang out with my kids, do home reading, all that kind of fun stuff. And then I had a girlfriend who said, I know you're not going to handle being at home for too long. How about you come work part-time with me in recruitment? I need someone just to kind of like support me. So she had been in recruitment for like a long period of time, and I respected her, and she basically just taught me the ropes. And that's how I started in my career. And it was an IT recruitment company. We were working with the banks, Westpac, Commonwealth Bank, a lot of like executive type of roles as well. And it was an amazing opportunity, and she was fantastic at what she did. And I would say, back then, I mean, recruitment was a little different, but as far as best practices go, I would say, she definitely showed me best practices in terms of how to manage stakeholders, candidate experience, and all that kind of thing. So it was an amazing opportunity. And I've continued on, obviously, in recruitment ever since then. I think my first recruitment role was in 2010. 2010.
Oh, same. There we go. That's when I kicked it off too. And like you, like I changed careers after being in floristry for a very long time. So
Oh, wow.
it's interesting. It's really interesting the journeys that we go on. We don't seem to pick this as a career path, but something draws us to
Definitely.
it. It's like these life moments, and there's something in us that excites us about recruitment. What was it when you were talking to your friend that made you go, do you know what? I think I might give this a crack. There's something interesting about this industry. What was it?
Well, I think firstly for me, it was a beautiful alignment, right? Because it's an IT recruitment company. I'd been working in IT for several years, so it was quite easy to sort of transition firstly. Secondly, I kind of got a little bit sick of just having to kind of sit and do software testing and just sit at a computer all day. So it was far more, back then particularly, I was very social. I love talking to people, and I still do like talking to people. But probably, I'm just a little bit more of a hermit when it comes to socializing these days. But so I was like, it sounds ideal. Like I can still make use of my IT skills and experience, but also I get to speak to people and potentially. I think the other thing was, now thinking about it, because I contracted for so long, I had seen so much of the good and the bad in terms of recruitment, right? And so I also knew that I wanted to make sure that people felt that they weren't just like a number, that they were actually, I was invested in them and in helping them get their dream role. That was the other thing, because I really just felt like most of the time when I was talking to recruiters, it was really fast-paced conversations, and like if you didn't answer the questions correctly, there was a hang up, and you'd be lucky if you heard from them again. They weren't really establishing those relationships. And so for me, establishing relationships, because even if then the match isn't there at this given moment, it's always good to do the right thing by people, because you just never know when you cross paths again, whether they're a candidate, a customer, whether they're a potential employer. So for me, it was really just about making sure I gave people a good experience and help them find a role that they're going to be satisfied in. And a lot of people that in my very first recruitment role, the great thing was, you would stay connected with them on LinkedIn. And what I got a lot of joy out of was getting people into these roles, and they were actually in those roles, or I could see them actually progressing in their career within that same organization, and ended up being there for several years. So I thought, wow, it's great when you've really been able to help someone to secure a role that they're happy in, and you can actually see that progression as well. So that was kind of exciting.
Amazing. And I love, the reality versus expectations in your case, and using that example of watching their careers flourish on LinkedIn, the desire to make that change and help people find the right opportunities for them with outstanding experience, outstanding candidate experience, rang true. So, and I think it's, having that dedication, that passion that you have, that you see the benefits and the results when you're able to see people flourish and shine. So I can imagine for you that's what hooked you in. Do you think? Is that?
Yeah,
is
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
talk me through then. You've been hooked. You've got the recruitment bug. Talk me through your career up until now. Like, tell me about that journey, because you're in internal now. You started in agency. So how did this all come about?
Yeah. So actually, I started in agency. I then actually moved into more of like professional services. So again, it was finding people for contract opportunities, right? So I typically would work with the business development managers. So they would secure contracts with the end customer, and then it was up for me to make sure that we had contractors available that could work on that particular project. So started off in a smaller organization, Australian company. Was there for about 5 years. So I was able to, it was great because they didn't have any software in place. Everything was in the director's heads or in a folder on their laptop. So I got to really establish all of the technology, all of the processes. So that was really exciting. But then after 5 years, I just felt like in my personal life, I'd had some major change. And I'm one of these people that for some reason, I must be a bit of a sadist, but I'm like, okay, if that's changing, I'm going to change this and I'm going to change. I just put myself through a whole lot of change and stress at the same time. So I thought, okay, I'm ready for a new gig, and decided I wanted to be able to manage a bigger team. And interestingly enough, I've never been this person that, puts out a call to the universe. But I did do that. And literally within days, I got a call to say, hey, we've looked at your profile and we're an agency that's looking to move to a professional services model, and we really need someone with your experience to come in plus manage a team. And I was kind of like, really? It was exactly what I'd given thought to. So that was kind of cool. So then that organization was then actually acquired by Cognizant. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Cognizant.
Yep.
So it's
Absolutely.
Indian IT mammoth of an organization. So in terms of scale, it was completely different to what I was used to. It was just massive. I thought to myself, I'm going to just give it a try. It's very different to types of organizations I worked in previously, because I really wanted to get that level of experience at that scale and see how they did things, what they did differently, how it was all managed at such a massive scale. So did stay there, had a change of management, and that caused me some angst. So I decided to make a move. And then where did I go from there? I'm trying to remember now.
We'll put up the LinkedIn profile, right? I have those moments too.
I know.
The timelines, right? Because we're always running so fast in our industry that, when you reflect back, you're like, oh God, when did that happen?
Yeah, exactly. And then I moved on actually to an American, again, it's a professional services organization consulting company called RGP. And I really had a great time there. Learned a lot, was part of the APAC leadership team. It was just different in terms of Cognizant, in terms of the way things were managed and the way that recruitment was done. So really loved that experience. And again, my manager ended up leaving, and around the same time, I decided to make a move because I had someone approach me to offer me an opportunity within agency. Unfortunately, that didn't last long because COVID happened.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, gosh, I remember when it happened and started applying for roles, and you just weren't hearing back from anyone. I just don't think I realized at that point the extent of, or the impact, right, that COVID was going to have in terms of recruitment, and particularly when it came to consulting organization, your professional services, and that. I was almost seeing a lot of organizations were, cutting costs at that point in time. So they just weren't hiring. It was really, really tough. And I think I've never been out of a job before. Like, if anything, I've chosen to make the move. So this is really the first time. So I had experienced that. And at the time I had 2 kids under my roof and, trying to pay the bills. And so 4 months of searching. Which for me was scary, I'm going to admit. But I realized, I'd put out something out into the universe previously. So I just knew, enjoy those. I made a decision to enjoy those moments with my kids because, they were kind of in their teenage years. And I thought, wow, when are you going to get this opportunity to spend this much time under the one roof together, right? So we were just tried to have a good time during that period. And also, I decided we'll just celebrate any holidays that came up. So during that time, like I think there was like Cinco de Mayo, and I would be off and grabbing, tequila and decorations and making tacos, and
Amazing.
just any
Yeah.
moment we got, we would just be doing something just to get through and switch things up a little bit, because it was a little bit like Groundhog Day most of the time, right, when we were in lockdown. So
Absolutely. And you know what? Like, I think when I reflect on lockdown, because it was such a traumatic time for everyone, right? Particularly those that were unemployed as well, just to make things worse. But it was that embracing of creativity that you've just described that I like to look back on and go, do you know what? It was a really creative time in my life. And I really embraced my artistic side and
amazing.
all of that, just like you did, right? With your little celebrations that you were putting on. Like, we have to see the positives, right? Like, we went through the most traumatic period that you could go through, and got to look at silver linings.
Absolutely. And there was definitely a silver lining to all of that, because I got an opportunity at Baxter as a senior talent business partner. So that was amazing. But I'll be honest here, and I did think that would be an interim role. Because all I knew was IT recruitment, and here I was taking a gig in healthcare, and I'm like, I don't know anything about healthcare. And it just also was my comfort zone, like working in consulting, I suppose, and it was just what I was used to. But I have to say, I really appreciated getting the opportunity, and one of the things I learned was that it's an amazing industry to be a part of. It's very purpose driven. As opposed to, I guess the other thing is, when I worked in IT, I mostly worked with banks, financial institutions, insurance companies. And I would say it's very ego driven, those kinds of industries. And so working for Baxter was really different, because I feel like we all shared a common goal. At the end, our mission is saving and sustaining lives, literally. And you're not having to, like put on your armor and, have to sort of like deal with people that sort of are playing games or anything like that, which typically happened with a lot of the organizations and projects we were working on. Whereas I just find at Baxter, culturally, it's an amazing organization. We've done a lot of work around DE&I. We're an inclusive employer. It's just it really is a great place to work. And I've also had a lot of opportunity to develop, progress in my career as well. I now manage recruitment for Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Greater China. So that's all within a couple of years.
How interesting! Interesting that I can really relate to what you're saying around purpose. Yeah. Because likewise, like I'm now working for a charity, right? And a charity that I'm very invested in the work that they do. I'm very passionate about the work that they do in giving back. And I don't think as an industry we're talking about this enough. I've interviewed some other people in not-for-profit on the podcast that have said very similar things in terms of their job satisfaction because of that strong connection to purpose, how having that connection has helped them thrive in their profession and see those opportunities open up because they're so happy and they're thriving and they're loving their work, just like yourself. For me, I don't think we're discussing enough around candidate drivers, because we're seeing it happening for us. We're not talking about, people are no longer looking for a position that pays above, the other organizations. If it's a big beast with ego and it's a money making, I think as a society with all the tragedies that are going on in the world, we want to contribute to making a difference. So whether that's through sustainability, whether that's through healthcare like yourself, whether that's through not-for-profit charity, it's the only way we're going to feel good at the moment because the world's a scary place, right? And I just don't
Absolutely.
think we're talking about this enough because there's so many stories like yours out there, Suzann, that it's really powerful. And I'm feeling it now, relatively early into my job. I just feel like a different person because
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing, right? And I love
Mhm.
hearing that. Are you finding the people that you're bringing into Baxter that they've got that similar motivation in terms of their drivers and the why they want to come and work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. And when we are interview screening and interviewing people, we do want them to be passionate about what we do. Um, the work, and don't get me wrong, because the work's not always easy. There's always challenges, but I think that at the end of the day, if you keep that mission in mind, and we get to work with really great people as well, and I think
Mm,
that makes the difference. As challenging as things can be, particularly my team, it's a great team to be a part of, and we care about each other, we have each other's backs, we support each other, and that makes a world of difference. And again, you know, Baxter, HR, the business, along with TA, DNI is a massive focus for us. That whole piece around being an inclusive employer, and it's not just words; like you see it in action, and it's the same with our culture levers, which are courage, collaboration, speed, and simplicity.
mm,
Um, and I've never worked for an organization where I remember our mission or our culture levers or anything because it didn't really align. Like it feels
right.
like
Mm,
you really align to all of that. That's the difference, right? Like I can, I know it all off by heart and I can spit it out, sort of thing. Whereas before, I don't think I've ever sort of bothered with it too much. But and I think that is the premise of it is that you really do see those behaviors in action, right? And you see that people really do care about the work we do, about their teammates, team members, and you know, th- there's still a lot of work to be done, don't get me wrong, but I think that there's a lot of really good intent in terms of what we do around the whole DE&I piece and being an inclusive employer. We're really focused on being a best place to work. So there's a lot of like collaboration, between the business and HR and the employees to better understand as an employee, what do you need as well, right? What are your needs, and how do we make the workplace better? And it's a challenging industry as well. We our headquarters is out in Old Toongabbie, so that's near Parramatta.
mhm,
So we have a headquarter out there, like we're on a campus, and we have our head office, but we also have a manufacturing plant out there, right? We also have compounding. So for us in recruitment, we recruit for a really diverse set of candidates because we're doing commercial, corporate, operations, manufacturing, engineering, you name it. We've got all warehouses. So it's very diverse, and it was really interesting when some of the results came back from the inclusive employer, um, and that was through Diversity Council of Australia. Um, the number of languages spoken within our workforce is incredible. And, the amount of people born overseas, it kind of blew my mind because, like, we used to talk a lot about DE&I and being inclusive. And again, with really good intent, but all of a sudden we have data now that actually backs up that we really are everything that we talk about. It's
mm,
kind of great. And so we ended up doing we had to do some bulk hiring for our manufacturing plant, and we got people to come in. We showed them around, talked a little bit about the opportunity, and I actually went through all the data with them because I just thought it was just so brilliant to
mm.
be able to actually prove that yes, we really are an inclusive organization and diverse and inclusive. And that was a really proud moment as well for me, like to be part of that. So that was, yeah. So it is really, truly, I must say, a great organization. I think next year it'll be 5 years for me, and not too bad for an interim role.
Oh, right, right. Like you found your place, right?
I
And
think
you
so.
can feel it, and you can feel that energy. I can feel how empowered you are in the
Hmm.
work that you do, and that's what when we talk about us as teenagers and rebelling and leaving home early and trying to figure our way in the world, like, it's great that you found it and you found that purpose.
Yeah. And I think too, I said to you that, there's definitely challenges at Baxter, for me personally, and we actually, what we do really well, I would say, is we do regular check-ins, like with managers. We do, performance reviews. We get feedback from our stakeholders. And I've never really had such a structured process around performance. And to be able to we have what we call ACE check-ins. So nothing ever comes as a surprise because you're having these regular monthly conversations anyway. But when you do get the feedback from some of your stakeholders, I think this is the first place where based on our situation, right? Like, I don't know about you, but I always felt like I was surviving as opposed to thriving. I'm in a place in my life now, I'm definitely thriving. And so, but one of the things is I had to hold a mirror up to myself at Baxter because I've never been somewhere where people are pretty genuine in their feedback. And again, it's all with really good intent, but people are very open and honest about how they feel about things. And so I've had to put up a mirror and go like, okay, maybe this has worked for you for the last 20 years, like maybe I can be a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? Defensive, let's say, or take things a little bit too personally or what have you. But the way that feedback's provided really allows you to take it in and go, all right, how can I do better? How can I do something differently? And so for me, I've also I feel like I've not only grown professionally, but just personally to be able to take this feedback off without, as I mentioned, the difference between thriving and surviving. I think for me, I always had a flight mechanism whenever something bothered me, like if someone gave me, if I took something personally, someone gave me bad feedback or didn't agree with me, especially working in contract roles. I think that was so enticing. You could just move on to your next contract if you weren't happy about something, right?
Totally.
At Baxter, there's so much about it that I love. I don't think I'm prepared to take that flight, and there's no need to fight. So what happens is I just have to take it all on board, process it all. And I truly do think I've become a better person for that as well. So it, especially at my age and that, it's just taken me a long time to get here. I think there's been a lot of obstacles for me along the way, but I'm here, and like you said, it does feel like a great place to work for many reasons.
Oh, I find your story so incredibly inspiring, and I'm sure our listeners have as well. What a great journey, Suzann. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. I just want to end with one final question. Yeah, just really what your final piece of advice would be for anyone who's working in our industry or maybe considering a career in recruitment or talent. Yeah.
I mean, it is a great industry to be part of. Great people that you get to work with, great people you get to meet and network with. No day's ever the same. So if you're somebody who doesn't like the mundane, you're adaptable, you're resilient, you like to just where no day is the same. Definitely recruiting is the place to be. I think I might just end too on one of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou. And for me, it's around the fact that, her quote is, I've learned that people will forget what you said, but people won't forget what you did. People will never forget how you make them feel, right? So, they'll forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but it's all about how you make them feel. And I think that's really the key for anyone who wants to come into recruitment. You have to provide that great candidate experience and hiring manager experience. And that's really what it comes down to. So, I'm all about emotions and feelings. So I think for me, that's just one of my favorite quotes. And I think it resonates really well because, if you really want to make a career out of recruitment, as I mentioned earlier, people are going to always come and go throughout your career. As I said, you might, a candidate might not be available today, but if you haven't done the right thing by them, then they'll remember that in the future, right? And that's the same with customers, your managers, your team members, you name it. So I think it's just doing right by people, right? It's being respectful, doing right, doing the right thing, following through on things, being your authentic self, being genuine. But yeah, I would highly recommend this industry for
Excellent.
anyone who is interested in it, or who, like I said, doesn't like the mundane, because my goodness. And it's not just that, it's your emotions as well, right? You're kind of
Right.
riding on waves of emotion,
Yeah.
like constantly. It's like, what do they say?
The champagne
Recruitment,
and razor blades.
champagne and razor blades. That's the one. It's so
Couldn't
true,
agree
though. It's
more.
like a roller
It's so
coaster
true.
ride,
It is. But I think that's
Um,
why we love it, right? Like it keeps us on our
yeah,
toes. It keeps things interesting. And like you, I've never been drawn to the mundane. So,
yeah.
Suzann, this has been amazing. I've so much loved catching up with you today and listening
Thank
to your
you.
story. And thank you for your authenticity and your generosity. And can't wait to catch up with you again soon. Suzann,
It's been
have
a
an
pleasure.
amazing afternoon. It's been a
Thanks,
delight. Thanks
Aiden.
again. Take care.
You too. Bye.